I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Bush Whisperer. First, if you'd like to help with our film fundraiser, we're working on movie number 3. It's going to be different than the other two. It's going to be a sci-fi comedy mockumentary featuring myself and many of your favorite researchers, authors, and content creators. If you'd like to help us get this production going, if you'd like to make a donation, please use the link right in the description. All my films are self-funded with the help of your kind donations. Be sure and check out my previous films. Doors of Perception is on Amazon Prime. Occult Louisiana is on Tubi, Roku, Apple, and many more. We're booking guests for February. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Bush Whisperer. He is a full-time practicing shaman from Cape Town, South Africa. He also shares authentic, practical, and theoretical content on many spiritual and esoteric subjects. Bush Whisperer, welcome. How you doing?
Absolutely well, brother. Can't complain. It's hot here, Cape Town, beach weather. And life is just moving on. December caught up fast.
It did.
Trying to make it through the holidays.
Right on. Welcome back. It's great to have you. Last time you were on, you shared a bit about your journey, gave great insights about the nature of spiritual beings and your metaphysical experiences. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the nature of time and dimensionality, and how we're manipulated as humans to participate in a false paradigm with warped perceptions of reality. This is a huge topic, and you've got some great talking points that you sent me. Before we get into this, though, remind the audience just a little bit about yourself and let them know how they can find out more.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and thank you, dear brother Chris. I'm a local shaman here practicing in Cape Town. But I've been invested into the spiritual sciences and the occult sciences since I was a little child. And I don't know if you caught my last show with Chris. Chris is a wonderful guy to go on a show with. He just sort of milks you like a cow. Information just comes flowing. And I've got a lot of experience in spiritual practices, and I lived in probably a lot of my adult life in the Far East, and amalgamated Western traditions with Eastern traditions, and got drawn into the shamanic path into the jungles where I lived, and got to find a different taste for life. So, where you can find me on LinkedIn. If you just go into LinkedIn at Bush Whisperer, you can find me on YouTube at Bush Whisperer, in LinkedIn, at Bush Whisperer on Facebook. And LinkedIn is where a lot of people come to me for like professional, but YouTube and Telegram is where I communicate, hang out, talk to people, just
Excellent.
Chat.
Well, this is such a big topic. I'm not sure where we would start when looking at time and dimensionality, but where do you think we went wrong with our understanding of this?
That's a phenomenally powerful question. I don't even know how to really address that to start where we went wrong. I would say, like, if I were to try and get a handle on that, I would say that I would imagine that it has to do with this material money.
Yeah.
We started getting obsessed with material goods and material things and technology, and the more we got fixated on how easy and amazing we could make our lives and our toys, the more we started becoming attached to our work. Where I think before we subsisted, and in a subsistence lifestyle, One does what one has to in order to get what one needs, like animals in the wild. But then the greed monster started jumping on our backs. And I would say that's probably where we started to get fixated on this materialist perspective, where we started to move towards this idea of atheism, that we are just physical beings, starting to forget that we have a deeper multidimensional self. And the more we think about physical things, the more we attune to physicality, and we lose our grip with our ancestral lineage, with our inner spiritual connection with the guides, and lose the perspective of just how multidimensional space is and how time isn't what it seems. And also, I think it's got to do with goals. When we become goal orientated, it's really great for achieving things, for making things happen. However, you can get stuck in the rut of moving forwards through time to achieve one goal after another. And when we're doing that, we don't stop to take a look around just exactly where we are. Sort of like if you're running a race through a forest, right? You're not going to stop and look at the flowers, are you? You're going to miss all the beautiful scenery because your mission is to get to the timeline, to the finish line as quickly as you can and get the best time that you can. You don't have time to stop and look at the water and the patterns in the water, how the water flows, the little birds sitting on the tree tweeting, the beautiful flowers, the blooms, the little bees. You only get to do that when you stop. And I think that we don't stop often enough.
When we look at the most detrimental ideologies that have been put forward since the dawn of time, based on most historical documentation, the masses seem to adopt these anti-human ideologies from the ruling class that is trying to manipulate and control for some reason. And I think our perception of time is the same, in a sense that that has been manipulated by the ruling class with calendars and work weeks. Like you said, it was all about greed, but I wonder if it's something that naturally developed in our human psyche, the desire to participate in this timeline structured reality, or if it was indeed something passed down by the ruling class that they may have received by non-human intelligences. What are your thoughts about that?
I think, what you're saying is quite profound, and I believe it's very much on point. My impression is absolutely the way that we were ruled. I think the way that you trigger the greed response in a human being is with scarcity. Because when you trigger the scarcity paradigm, then the human being starts worrying about the future. Is there going to be enough food for my family for the winter? And now you're able to manipulate that being to say, well, if you do this for me, I'll make sure that there's a surplus of wheat for you and lots of wood for your fire, right? I mean, if you imagine the lords of the manor. And so absolutely, it's definitely the aristocrats that perpetuated this crime of scarcity upon humanity in order for certain ruling classes to have absolute abundance. And in the same vein, I would say that it seems that these groups were very much fixated with certain bloodlines, and those bloodlines go right back to the ancient times, to what we call the giants, or we know them as the Nephilim, and from the Nephilim came the Anakim, but they're also known in India, they're known as the Ashura, and the Ashura begot the Raksha. If you go to Persia, the Ahura were the good guys, and the Yaksha were the good guys, and the Devas were the bad guys. In India, the Devas and the Devis were the good guys, and the Raksha were the bad guys with the Ashura. And so we've got these mixed stories, but there were definitely some kind of different spiritual entities vying for control. And some of them seem to be, from some perspectives, helping humanity more, and others seem to be trying to enslave humanity more. And obviously, there would have been contracts made, right? There would have been hybrids made in order to rule us, which is what a lot of the records seem to show. We can see this right back from the Sumerian records through, the Book of Giants is quite extensively available in different languages and cultures. It's a very ancient piece of writing, and there are other books as well. A number of the apocryphal writings will speak about this. Noah was a giant, and obviously we have these stories in the Norse traditions, and the American Indians speak about it, and there's nowhere where you go where there aren't stories of these beings. So there were these kind of beings that were ruling over humanity, and there were great and terrible wars fought, and certain bloodlines seemed to take charge after these great and terrible wars. And I think that the perpetuation of these ruling castes, for example, is it a coincidence that George Bush and most of the crew were all related to the Queen, right? Is it a coincidence that Carrot Top, the current American stooge, I mean, what was it? His uncle was responsible for Tesla's work being confiscated. I think it's his uncle, or one of his family. Anyway, my point is...
Oh, you're talking about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's uncle. Yes. Yeah, Carrot Top. Gotcha. All right. Yeah.
I try not to say too many names because that way, the algorithms don't try and flag us as a political show, because we're not really political, are we?
Not at all.
But yeah, so I mean, it's very easy to spot who's been ruling us and where that rulership comes from. And it's not new. And I think that there definitely are spiritual contracts with beings from what I would call the eighth sphere. That's how Steiner spoke of it. That's how Blavatsky spoke of it, from the Theosophical Society and from the Anthroposophical Societies, respectively. And, the Klipot rulership, as they would speak about in Western circles. And then you've got the Nagas and certain different kinds of spiritual entity populations that had interactions with humans between different yakshas, rakshas, and asuras. So you find this in every tradition, don't you? That there have been these entities in league with those that are in charge of us. Contracts were made.
Based on your understanding of the different spiritual traditions and possible communication with non-human intelligences from our ancient past, do you think that at some point that kind of interaction and communication ceased to exist, especially amongst the general population? It did seem to be mainly reserved for the priest class and the ruling class, but based on many ancient stories, there were also many regular people that seem to be able to communicate with the divine or angels or different beings. In your perspective, do you think that there was some kind of event or massive change to where in our modern age that is seen as complete fiction and basically fairy tales?
Absolutely. And the histories are repugnant with all of the evidence of it, right?
Yeah.
How far are you from Salem?
Pretty good distance. It's a couple of states away.
Well, I mean, that was like one of the hot spots in the USA for witch burnings.
Yeah.
Was it not? But I mean, they were not just there, they were all over the show. And I think like the originals, what became the Ku Klux Klan was actually looking for these kind of people's, original. Before that, there were these groups and secret societies that went around looking for people with gifts. And it's all across Europe. I mean, the Crusades happened. We can't deny that. And what was their major reason for this? Well, we can believe what we're being taught to believe by the histories, but I think it's more insidious than that, because a lot of the people that were forced to leave this world were the innocent, were those with gifts. Look at what the pharmaceutical industry did, right? After the witch hunts, and because most of the people that were put to the torch were medicine people. They were herbalists. They were practicing a kind of sacred spiritual medicine. And those were the first people to be condemned by the church, systematically removing everybody. And if you had a spiritual gift, that was it. You were done for. Not just you, your family, your family's lands. They would remove an entire bloodline. They would, and they were cruel and they were vicious. And so they forced people to either live in fear and forget about that. If you had a gift, you were either forced by your family to forget about it and not to develop it because you would put the family in danger, or you were caught. And I think that you do that for a generation or two and it sort of sticks, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would imagine so. And with each generation, there is such a massive loss of information, especially if you look at our modern times. We seem to have miniature resets every decade, and then larger versions cyclically that tend to wipe out much of the known history that we have. So we really have no idea what our real history is. Even trying to look back 20, 30, 40 years is difficult. Going back to our ancient past seems almost impossible with the amount of information that's been lost.
Absolutely. And, I discovered Tartaria. Funny little story. I was 12 and we had this. I wasn't looking for Tartaria. I didn't hear about it. I was studying the occult because I needed answers, right? I needed to explain, what on earth have I been, what's this life been all about? Why have I been having these crazy experiences? And the only place I could find anybody that seemed to know about this stuff was in occult texts and grimoires. I'd be like, okay, these guys are describing something that I know. Yeah. And so I had read about this Tartari place in some Tartarus. So I read about Tartarus in some Gnostic texts. I must have been about 12 years old. And I was like, okay, where is this place? We've got this very ancient set of antique encyclopedia. Yeah. It was the pride and joy of my mom's partner. And so I went to look in this old, and I wasn't supposed to look in this set because it was very, very old. It was from the 1800s or something. And, what was it, early 1800s? Anyway, it was a very old set. And I found this whole chapter on Tartari. And I was like, well, it's not Tartarus. And then I started paging through it, and I was like, okay, boring stuff, population structure, economy, maps, all that stuff. And I remember going to the school the next day and saying, well, why haven't we learnt about this place on the map, Tartary? And my school told me it didn't exist. That was my first sign of hold a moment. And I tried to explain to the teacher, no, I got this from an encyclopedia. And they said, no, you couldn't have. I said, yes, I did. We've got it at home. And they were like, well, bring it. Yeah. I said, I can't bring it. It's not mine. It's like more than a century old. It's an heirloom.
Yeah.
I'm not even allowed to touch it, let alone take it out of the house.
Right.
So it was very old, leather bound, all of that stuff. Wow. Was it leather bound or fabric or some kind of, I think it was leather. Anyway, my point is, I think that they've hidden a lot of our history from us. And there's a lot of evidence of the mud flood. Here where I live in Cape Town, the southern tip of Africa, if you go to the city, you go to Cape Town, you will find many of the buildings have a ground floor underground. And there are windows and doors. Right? And there's no historical account for how all these windows and doors are underground. Right?
Yeah.
That's a red flag, isn't it?
It's so interesting.
How do you not account for this? This is not just one building. This is a whole
We have the same thing in the United States. All across the United States, you'll find these buildings that seem to be, for some reason, buried up to a certain point. But I want to go back to time and our understanding of time for a bit. You mentioned in your talking points some of the Eastern traditions. Do you think that we can get a little bit better understanding of the nature of time based off of some of the Eastern traditions, India, Vedic, Taoist. Is there anything that they have brought that could give us a better understanding?
Yes, I'd love to be able to share a
Sure.
image. There it is. There it is. So I hope you can
Yes.
see it. Okay, we can see it. Now, how do I make myself become back there? Right. Right. So here we've got this. Let me look at it so that I can. Can you see my cursor on the
Yes.
image? Okay, you can. So here we have an idea of probably one of the most fundamental pieces of occult symbolism. And just for those that don't know, this is the Vedic enneagram. It is also how a Vedic astrological chart is drawn, right? The 9 astrological influences, and then they plot the chart over this 9 blocks. And yeah, we have a confluence of forces as it relates to this little structure that we're looking at here represents Saturn. This is the cube of Saturn, and this is the sigil of Saturn on the right-hand side here. And if you look at this Saturn sigil, you've got the 456 line, which represents the axis mundi. And we'll get into what the axis mundi is. The axis mundi is the world tree. It is the pole star. It is the totem, right? The totem pole that you dance around if you're doing a sacred dance. It is the middle pillar from the Western tradition. It is the Shashumna from India and Vedic practices and yogas. And it represents the central point of alignment between the expressive and the impressive. And here we've got, 7, 8, and 9. And here we've got 1, 2, and 3 that represents 2 sides. One to do with an expressive potential and an impressive. So we've got centrifuge and centripetal forces being represented here. And the centrifugal and the centripetal forces are bound in a pillar of harmony, which is ruled by the number 6, right? 4, 5, 6, 4 representing the root, the stability. 6 representing the harmony of Venus, of life, and of beauty. 5 representing mercurial potential. It's the calm at the center of the storm, the hub around which all movement is maintained. So 5 represents the movement and is hence at the center of this little diagram. And these 2 forces represent the centripetal. The one would represent the rising force, which we call the Pingala in Vedic cosmology. Is it possible for me to switch between one image and another easily here? I'm not used to using this particular.
I can still see your screen.
If I can.
You're going to different images here.
Kundalini Ida Pingala. Ida Pingala. Sorry, I usually. There we go. This is quite a good one to use. So we can here see. So I don't have to do anything. You can see the image.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah. So here we've got like an idea of Vedic perspective that represents these. You can see there's the central line, the Shashumna, which is the expression of the causal body. Very important. The causal body is what we call the Akasha. That's what transcends time and space. They speak of Akashic records in Western sort of ideas related to it, but the Akasha is more to do with sound that represents space. It is the cosmic egg of sound, vibration, through which the emanations of Ida and Pingala can come into being. And then we have the right side on the image here, which is our left side, which is a descending force. It brings coolness to the root, and that is considered Ida. And the Ida is, in Western English terms, the astral field, the astral body, the astral. So you've got three bodies in shamanism. You've got your divine body, right, which they represent here as the Shushumna. Then you've got your underworld, right, dream time where you find your power. And then you've got the middle world, which represents that forces of interaction between the divine and the underworld. This is where the magic as such happens. And so the Pingala would be considered the underworld in terms of the etheric body that is able to move around spatially here on the physical dense plane and holds the template. That's being the key. So the Pingala represents shape, represents geometry, represents structure, and it holds the form of things. The Ida represents the qualities. That's the astral. It represents color, feeling, all sorts of qualities that you will experience, textures, moods that you get when you look at the color red. You get a mood from that color red. It's an energizing, active, let's go out and do something kind of mood. Those are all related to the astral. So the astral is like a sphere of color and a sphere of impressions that we travel through, this fluid field of impressions. The etheric is a structured universe that looks and for all intents and purposes could be this reality, only you don't move conventionally, you move at the speed of thought, and walls are not an inhibition. And so you've got the etheric field, the Pingala, you got the astral field, the Ida, and then you got the causal field, the Shashumna, which is transmitting, and that is your soul body. Now,
can I ask you,
time happens as a result of Ida and Pingala coming together.
Oftentimes I think people get the etheric and astral confused. In this diagram, you're saying it's two different things. Could you differentiate between these two realms?
Well, the etheric body, most times when you hear people talking about astral projection, that's etheric projection. Like it's 99%, 95%. Few people can tell the difference. And that's due to a lot of these occult writers that were more theoretical than practical. Yeah. And they wrote all these books, and it's bugged me ever since I was a child. It was like how these guys that are famous writers can get these things back to front or confused. But the etheric is represents the word. So eth comes from the hieroglyph for bull, and for the hieroglyph of the cross, the T, which represents Saturn and time. And it is known in our circle as the Alpha and the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the ending. And that Alpha and Omega, beginning and ending, which is eth, which is ath, which is oth, which is where it is at. So English has developed the word at from this, which has got to do with coordinates and presenting this coordinates of geolocation. And that geolocation has got to do with the imagine geometry, the sacred geometry of crystals and of atoms and of energy patterns that are crystallizing in a particular pattern. So we're talking about the paternity. We're talking about pata, which is the Sanskrit for pati, which is father, and patre, which is, going from Greek lineages into Latin for father. And I mean, this is basically, German, you got father, and this is universal. And then you've got the mata, which is the feminine, and the feminine is a more chaotic principle. And so the astral then represents not having dimensionality in terms of a pattern.
Okay.
So the astral is extremely chaotic. It's just a fluid that you move through, and as you move through it, whatever you're feeling will imprint itself on this substance around you, and the substance will become like a dreamscape, but it will have no conventions in terms of up, down, forward, back, or any such notions. It will be completely abstract. And as it is completely abstract, it is not definable. And that comes from the root of the word fire. Ash. The word ash is from the same root, S. Even in Taoism, when you want to invoke the fire element in the Taoist alchemy, you would meditate on the sound of the hissing sound of serpents, of the salamander. And the hissing sound of this is the sound that fire makes when it's burning, right? And so that ash has got to do with the root of the word fire. And strahl means a ray. It's Germanic, right? So you look at astral, it means like the ray that comes from fire, which is essentially that which is emitted from heat and color and produces a quality of heat and potential. And then the eth, which is the beginning and the ending, is that which delineates A from B, produces differentiation. Like the floor is separating me from below, the air is separating me from above, the idea of left and right are separating me from two directional perspectives, and the idea of inside and outside. In the astral field, there is no inside, outside, up or down. It's just one continuity of absolute abstraction. In the etheric plane, you're literally on a plane that looks like this plane, and it follows pretty much the same rules. In fact, if you want to get right down to it, imagine this. Let's look at dimensionality for a moment. We're in the physical plane of existence now. And the physical plane of existence you could see as being a crystallized form of light, right? And this energy of consciousness is producing matter, which is the mother coming back to itself. But the mother isn't just the pure mother. The mother has got the father inside it, the pattern, right? So this mother has been patterned. So the paternity has entered into the maternity, producing the child of matter, if you want to consider it as such a metaphor. Now, when we look at matter, matter is contained within a structure. And the structure that contains matter is, you could compare it to a kind of an electromagnetic field of pattern. And that pattern is like a map. And everything inside this is mapped according to the pattern that's in. And that's the etheric field. And so the etheric field is a hyperdimension, and the matter is a small dimension within the etheric field. And so when you're in the ether, time slows down. There's a huge change of time. Now, the ether is a structure that is contained within an abstract field, which is hyperdimensionally more than the ether. And that is the astral, which are the qualities of heat and cold and light and color. And all these qualities are just mixing around. And they are based on an emotional state. So you have the astral, then within that you've got the etheric, and within that you've got the physical. And all of these are existing within a hyperdimensional field of what we call the causal field. And the causal field is really the totality of it. So its qualities, and it has split into its pattern. And the qualities have surrounded the pattern, and the pattern has then become condensed and crystallized, because the pattern gets filled with the potential of the qualities or the energy. So I get the sense that we've misconceived of this notion of reality, and this is all within this causal field, and the causal field having split the way it has. And this diagram in front of us shows that splitting rather well, right? It shows how the balance between the causal field emanates outwards to produce the Ida and the Pingala. And the Ida represents your pituitary gland in your physical body, represents your emotions, your hormones, and the currents of feeling. The Pingala represents your pineal gland. The pineal gland is a little pimple attached to the thalamus, sort of just behind your ear in the center of your head, but in the center. And the pineal gland regulates your central nervous system, regulates your optic nerve, the amount of light that is being received, the way the senses are relaying information. In fact, the thalamus is a filtration system for all of the sensual information that travels through the brain from the various senses. They go to the thalamus to be recoded so that the thalamus is able to put them into a contextual form of code that can then be sent, relayed to the parietal lobes, where the dream of reality is concocted and we experience this physical reality, which is really just dream at dream time.
Yeah.
Managed by the pineal gland, except for smell. This is why smell transcends this. Smell goes straight to the stem of the brain, and it connects with those deep emotional states. And the pituitary gland regulates your hormones, and it's got to do with regulation of growth and cell tissues and all of these things which are expressed as the hormones regulating enzymes and all the other production of the different biochemical agents in the body. And so you've got the emotions in the pituitary gland, the hormone system, and you've got the rational thoughts which are moving through the central nervous system, being carried through these little cables and nerves through our brain, lighting up electrical discharges to produce a field that this extra dimensional consciousness is able to enter into the body. And the consciousness is really what we're talking about. Everything is consciousness. So when we think of this matter, this table underneath my hands or the ground under my feet, that's consciousness. And we've forgotten this. And so this consciousness is the substance of form that we experience physically. But the consciousness comes from a place of pure thought. And so there's this range from the causal field, which is that part of the soul which moves into the body, and that part of us that will move out of the body. And when that causal soul moves out, it wears a etheric and an astral glove, which it will drop off here on the physical plane or on its subjective planes, closer to the physical. And the causal will move from time to time. But it's because the causal is that field of time, right? And that field of time is condensed into linear packages because of this polarization of Ida and Pingala. And so getting back to that other image, you can see now, I don't seem to be able to go back to my other image. How do I move this thing? That's a little bit tricky. There we go. Okay, there we go. Managed. So if you look at this image now, you can see that this is the same idea as what we've just looked at, right? But it's put into a geometric pattern. And this represents, obviously, the 8 points, yeah? And this is the 8 points of the octahedron. And so we are in a structure which is like an octahedron. And that octahedron structure within it contains a cube, right? And that cube is represented here, effectively. And so when we start to pay attention to that, we start noticing that this 4, 5, and 6 contracts into a central point, right? And the other 6 points basically rotate to form the vertices of the Merkaba or the cube in terms of the astral space or etheric space. The cube is the symbol for etheric, and the Merkaba, which is a tetrahedron, double-faced tetrahedron, one tetrahedron spinning clockwise, the other tetrahedron spinning anti-clockwise, and they're sort of rotating through each other like that. Yeah, hard to describe, but they're moving in different spins. And obviously you have this fiery essence pulling the energy and this cool essence pushing the energy, and they produce this centrifugal harmony and balance, and this represents the astral forces of quality. Then these become more crystallized, and they become the form of a cube, where you then have the 6 vertices on the outside representing the 6 directions, right? And this cube, which is what they praying to it maker, which is what the old Saturn cults used to worship. And just a word of Saturn. Saturn was one of the earlier deities that was worshipped, and Saturn used to have a scythe because Saturn was the reaper, but Saturn was reaping the corn. So when we're looking at depictions of the green man, we're looking at depictions of that which represents the abundance of nature to bring food, corn, and wealth to you. So in modern times, we associate Saturn with the number 8, with money. But in old times, we associated Saturn with green nature because nature was what you could have, right? You could have food in your barn. So there's an interesting perspective of how we've changed our perspective of what Saturn represents. But Saturn is the lord of time. And as the lord of time, Saturn represents rhythm. And the rhythm is like the fundamental structure that vibration follows, because vibration is bound by the law of rhythms. And the rhythm dictates this linear movement. And that linear movement is happening because number 4 is rooted. And because number 4 is rooted, number 6 is maintaining the harmony of 4, so that 4, even though rooted, can have harmony. And at the center of that harmony is number 5, which is movement. So it's a moving, rotating axis mundi, but it's also been depicted as a tree, right? Where you'll have the trunks, number 5, you'll have the roots, number 4, you'll have the branches and the leaves, number 6, for example. Another way of conceiving it, which is how it was conceived of in more ancient times. So this idea of Saturn representing the structure of time has got a lot to do with these ideas that we've become so enamored by physical things, and the etheric represents physicality. So the astral represents spirituality, because the astral is about the qualities. It's abstract. It's about the feelings. It's what do you feel deep down? Who are you? These are abstract questions. What did you achieve? What can you hold? What have you done? Those are physical, etheric concepts. And so we become so locked into the etheric that we've lost touch with our feelings. And the notion of time, just to bring it back to the causal field, these principles are what's locking us in to the astral and the etheric. When we transcend the astral and the etheric in the causal field, we are no longer bound by time. We're in the Akasha. In the Akasha, we're in the womb of the world, the world womb, the egg, cosmic egg. And in that cosmic egg, we can experience past lives, future lives. Time is not binding us, because we think of time as being somewhere over there or in the past or the future, but all time is here. The only way to explain it is like this. Imagine like one point, that's one dimension. Then 2 parameters gives us space. There's one dimension, it's space, right? But in order to get from one dimension to 2 dimensions of space, you need almost infinite points on a flat plane, right? Now we've got this flat plane, 2 dimensions. How do we get to 3 dimensions? Well, we need to have almost infinite layers and stacks of these flat planes to produce the 3rd plane, right? The 3rd dimension. So you can see how the one point is stacked into almost infinite to make this the 2-dimensional plane, and the 2-dimensional planes are stacked into an almost infinite to create the 3-dimensional plane. And what the 3-dimensional plane is a lot of different 2-dimensional planes interacting with each other. Okay, so what's the 4th dimension? Well, the 4th dimension is when you have a whole lot of almost infinite 3-dimensional planes superimposed over each other. And those almost infinite number of 3-dimensional planes superimposed over each other, is each 3-dimensional plane is like a snapshot of reality. But when you run them fast, it produces movement, right? But there's an almost infinite number of them. So on some sense, you've got to pick like image 582195 followed by image 212135, and they've got to sort of sync up. And from this reservoir of proverbial cosmic soup of all these different 3D potentials, we've got this 4th dimensional package of linear or a worm-like structure moving through images that follow a causal route of existence. However, when we go beyond that 4th dimension, so the 4th dimension you can think of as time. When you go beyond the 4th dimension of time, you've then got to imagine all these different timelines. Here, now we're talking about the multiverse, right? They're all the same kind of universe as this universe, but they're all slightly different. Now, next level of dimensionality, where you've got all these different multiverses all these different universes, like this universe, but all slightly different. And you're able to jump from one of these universes to another universe. And this is called transformation and change. And we're doing it all the time. And so we've got this almost infinite scale of these multiverses. And then what is beyond that, right? Because that's now the fifth dimension. What's the sixth dimension? Well, you need to have all these multiverses, but each multiverse is unique to the other multiverses. So in this multiverse, the laws of physics are different. In that multiverse, beings have got funny eyes. In that multiverse, beings are crystalline beings, right? And each multiverse contains within it an almost infinite series of universes, when you consider the scale of this. And so all of these almost infinite multiverses are existing here at one point. And so we're able to travel between these multiverses, between the universes in the multiverses, through our consciousness, what it means to be fully multidimensional beings. And we could consider that as the sixth dimension, right? And so what is the seventh dimension? It starts to become obscure, right? For the brain to keep track of, like, what would that look like if you have the multiverse of multiverses?
Yeah.
And what you even call that structure? And you would have to have an almost infinite number of those. So what we think of as time, when we come back down from step back into our universe, is these little linear structures. But these linear structures are actually surrounded by all these other potential times. So this is why we're able to see the future, relive past lives, have, prophecies, have moments of realization of things that are going to come in the future. And why fortune telling, and why we have spent so much time in our lives learning to develop these skills, why kings and queens have always had a court astrologer, for example.
Yeah. I want to get a little deeper into the nature of the eighth sphere beings that you mentioned earlier. Some know them as Archons. First thing is, based on your understanding, do you think these beings are outside of what we understand as space and time and have the ability to affect reality outside of that? Or are they within everything we've been discussing?
Well, that's a really interesting question. My understanding of that is relative and limited, if I'm completely honest. But what I do know from my experiences is that these beings are there, they're real, and that eighth sphere isn't the place you really want to tangle with. It's not the only place where other beings exist, right? Just to be clear, there are beings that are in this sphere, that are a part of this sphere, which is like a chain of life. For example, like my arm, my body, it's a lot, right? I think of my body as just being my body, but my body is a series of different individuals. Each organ is a different being, and they're all interacting together. And they've learned to cooperate so much that they've become merged into one body. And each one of these beings, each organ's got its own emotion, its own consciousness, its own drive. And they have to subsist together in a state of harmony. But each being is part of a system. And that system causes interaction between other beings. And if we look at that system and that being, there are populations within that being of different tissues. And each little individual cell within that tissue is a being with its own consciousness. And that's like just accounting for like half of the cells in our body. The other half are microbes. And those microbes are foreign bodies that act as glue, and they act as part of our immune system, and they act as various different parts, digestion, enzyme production, various different microbial network that can keep everything together and keep the system flowing and service all of the other beings. It's like a service industry, if you will, You're going to have a lot of people. So within the universe of consciousness and energy, this exists in the same way as it does in our body. But there is an eighth sphere. And the eighth sphere is a unique thing. From my understanding of it is that from the text that I've come across, which the Book of Giants and various different texts, there was a great battle, and the battle was between these 200 beings that descended on Earth. The oldest route of them they call the Igigi. That's in the Sumerian texts, but they are called the Grigori by the Greeks. And the Grigori, there were 200 of them, and they came to Earth. And these Igigi or Grigori decided to take forms, and so now we hear about the Nephilim, right? And they wanted to live on physicality. They wanted to have lives here. So they had to have offspring. Because in order to have a footprint in linear time, you need to have generation, right? So that you can reincarnate, you need to have generations that follow you, right? Because you can't just incarnate here. There needs to be particular mathematical consistency. So you need to put your seed onto the earth, and that seed needs to prosper so that at some point in life you can pop up again as one of those seeds, right? Like a plant, a tree putting out seeds, and at some point that tree can grow out again on another seed far away, and it's basically the same tree, just about, almost the same information, but slightly evolved. And that's sort of like future lives and past lives. These beings wanted to propagate here, but they became corrupted by this space, by this earth. And in their corruption, they caused a lot of harm to humans. And there were wars. And then it says that they were cast down and a prison was created for them. In some accounts, they speak about Gabriel, Michael, Ariel, Raphael banding together, striking them down and sealing them in the ethers of the earth, giving them their own abode where they were trapped. In other accounts, we've got, we've got a number of them from the Arabic accounts, the accounts of the Persian and the Greeks, the Norse, these wars between the giants and the gods. So anyway, the story is that these beings were vanquished, and these beings were cast into a place where they would await judgment. They would be trapped there. Now, Steiner speaks about the different epochs of man, that we've come through 4 different epochs. We're moving to the 5th epoch now, and that these beings come from a previous time of the moon matrix epoch and of the Saturn matrix epoch, and that these were different epochs altogether, and that the beings of that time passed away, but they were sort of being dragged along by the universe that's recreating itself, and that the universe will destroy itself and recreate itself from time to time is another concept. And this is the Vedic concept of the yugas. Yeah, they got beautiful stories about how Shiva goes to sleep and the universe goes out of being and sleeps in the great cosmic oceans of the cosmic egg. And then Shiva comes popping out of Vishnu's belly button, and the universe dances back into being, and Brahma creates through Shiva's expressions, and bang, the universe is back into being. And that there are mathematical cycles that the universe will uncreate and recreate itself, sort of like it does a sonic boom of sorts. And some beings are left behind. So how these beings got to be there, I don't know, but I believe that the time stream reverses. So you get to a certain point in the cosmic arc of where we are, where we're moving now, and there's the Ida and there's the Pingala, right? So the Ida is moving one way and the Pingala is moving another way. At the moment, Pingala is dominant. So Pingala carries the forces of life and manifestation. But I believe that at some point there'll be an inversion, and when the universe pops out and pops back in, then the Ida will be dominant and the Pingala will be following. Now the Ida, the emotional side, is repressed, and the rational, logical, Pingala, etheric. The etheric also relates to your mental abilities, your logic, your ideas and thoughts, will be dominant. So these beings are facing the wrong direction in terms of time stream, and they are being left behind by time, and their universe is, their 8th sphere is shrinking and corroding away until it will pop out of being, and they will be churned into fodder to start the journey of the amoeba, again. And they don't want that. So what they do is they are trying, according to, this is Steiner, this is Rudolf Steiner from the Anthroposophical, and he got a lot of his information from Madame Blavatsky, from the Theosophical Society, which got a lot of their information from the Rosicrucians as well. But this is in alignment with what we see in the Vedic law as well. It doesn't seem to contradict it. Is that at some point, these beings discovered that they could prey on humans, and that if they could align human beings to be with them, they could siphon off the life force, prana, soul energy of the human to turn it into currency that they can trade with in the eighth sphere. And that currency of trade is what they are able to maintain their sphere with. Wow. So that it's not disappearing out of time. So their very survival depends upon them being able to latch onto us. This is why they're vampiric beings and why they want to suck our energies and why they want to control us, because they want us all to turn their direction. Because we have this power to reorganize the whole of creation, humanity. This multidimensional expression is a part of our soul matrix. So when we all are one of one mind, the whole universe sympathetically aligns itself with us, because it's all just consciousness. And we are the top of the pyramid of consciousness coming into being here. We are the biggest effect of consciousness intelligence in the universe around this zone. And so if these beings can align themselves with us, they can hopefully, according to their idea expressed by Steiner, is they can actually swallow this universe into the eighth sphere and make the eighth sphere the new universe, which is like, it's a heavy concept. The universe is corroding, it's breaking to pieces, and it's falling to bits, and the only way they can keep it is by sucking the life out of ours.
The overall direction that human evolution is going, it seems to be in part guided by these non-human forces passed down to the ruling class, as we were talking about earlier, in order to steer society in certain directions. And when we look at the technological age we're in now, the degradation of human morality and compassion and connection to nature and source, that would absolutely make sense that their influence is guiding us in a certain way.
I don't want to talk about it too much, but I mean, they're trying to legalize watching children doing things that children shouldn't do if it's animated, right?
Yeah. Before we close out, I'd like to get into solutions on how to navigate where we're at now. You mentioned meditation in your talking points. Before we do, I want to get your thoughts on the multi-dimensional, multiverse possibilities of this reality. I've had guests on that have discussed jumping timelines. Some of them have actually claimed to be able to do this through various techniques, meditation. I've had other guests that have had near-death experiences and claim to now be existing in a different reality than they were before. Others had near-death experiences, and it seems that a completely different person came into their body after having that experience. And I'm wondering if this connects to the multiverse reality, that if it's possible to jump into different timelines through various means, either near-death experience, meditation, maybe even psychedelics. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's happening all the time for everybody. It's how time works.
I see.
I think people get caught up in that and they think, wow, it's something special. It's not something special. It's normal. We're all doing it. We're doing it every day. Every time that we transform, we're shifting.
Every time we shift our perspective on something,
perfectly normal and natural. Yes. This is how subtle the structure is. So it's happening all the time. And yes, absolutely. I think it's just people's perspective are caught up on that hyperdimensional zone, and they're thinking that that's special, but it's really like coming right down to the roots of the tree. Like as a gardener will tell you, focus on the roots of the tree, focus on the roots of the plant, keep the root zone healthy, and the rest of the plant will prosper. And so if we focus on the roots, yes, absolutely, this timeline shifting is a normal part of life. And when we transform ourselves, the universe around us transforms. And this is the magic of life. Life is magical. The universe is a complete magical construct. We talk about consciousness. A conch is a shell that comes out of the sea. And the conch is blown in ancient India to call the hierarchies of the angelic hosts and the spiritual beings to come to spiritual war, right? To come to aid. And Zeus is Jupiter. But in Vedic tradition, we do Pati, you see? So we've got this, and then we've got Zeus, and then we've got Jupiter, and we've got Pita, which is the Sky Father. It's one of the earliest deities worshipped in India. And so this is relating to that which is transcendent, like consciousness, that from whence consciousness comes, the father of consciousness, thine father that Emmanuel was talking about, to step away from the church's transformation of the message, right? Because there was a good message. Unfortunately, the priests got hold of it. They do that. But so consciousness is the substance of everything. So if everything's made out of consciousness, then when we change our consciousness, everything else is changing. And that this is a rule of manifestation. Manifestation is changing universes. It's just a different way of presenting the information. It's the same reality. If you're manifesting something, you're drawing a different universe towards yourself. Now, how to do this? That's the real point, and that's where this beautiful image comes into play here. When we're looking at this Saturn cube, right? That central pivot, the 4, the 5, and the 6, is what brings us into alignment. That's your central column. And so we're talking about harmony. We're talking about balance. We're talking about harmony. We're talking about striving towards generating a harmonious state of being, a harmonious way of connecting with other people in as much as we can. And sometimes that involves being direct with people, right? If people are full of crap, you're going to say, look, you made you full of crap, back off. It's not about just being excessively tolerant all the time. Like, we should not be tolerant of people that mess with children. I'm a father. You see how intolerant I can be. You know what I mean? I think we need to have boundaries. Yeah. We need to keep it real in the world, but at the same time, we need to keep it real. Balance and find our own balance and find our tribe, and become close to the people that we relate to, and that love. Care is the structure of being, right? So that's what brings new children into life. When a man and a woman, they love each other, and if a man and woman are in love, it's so much easier for them to have babies. Don't know if you noticed that. Like, you really need contraception badly if you don't want kids. Yeah. If you're not really in love, it's harder to make babies. There's something magical that happens with that power of that glue. And obviously that also keeps the generations together. Our parents, our grandparents keep the cultural glue of our past. And this is something that we've forgotten. So this digital crap, we need to less digital. We need to less online, less of all of the Hollywood mind control. Because the Hollywood is... Okay, so the holly is the tree of the druids, and the wand of the holly was used to hypnotize, right? So if you needed to be hypnotized, that's what the holly wand was used for. So Hollywood is a hypnosis engine. Yeah. It's we pay for the right to be mind controlled, which is real hilarious. But there's a lot of education in it. There's a lot that you can learn because they tell you their dirty little secrets while they hypnotize you, but how to withstand that hypnosis, and that's where meditation comes into it. Meditation will be written about as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but really what it is it's about coming back to the center. And it's about your thoughts, your emotions, allowing them to subside and bringing the breath back to the central pivot so that you can get to that point where you are just here experiencing reality without trying to change or imprint your thoughts or your feelings onto it. And that's a shift of awareness that gives you the power to recognize what reality is and how you can influence it. So meditation gives you that power if you practice it, because you become aware. And listen to the word aware. I wear this body, but where do I aware this body, right? This is about awareness, space. If you understand your space, you can control it, right? If you know what the perimeters of your land is, you can build a wall around your land, you can build a house, you can control your space. In the same way that you can control your space to keep the bugs out and the snakes out and the spiders out and safe environment for your kids and keep it clean, you can do that with your consciousness. Similar idea. So meditation is that way of bringing back the mind from the madness that we're inducing into our minds. And we are inducing madness through the media, madness through the way that we live. We're being driven into this financial war with ourselves, where we're constantly having to run and jump through hoops to get money, to make ends meet, or to actualize our dreams. And the more we get, the more we seem to need, the more we seem to want. It's an endless spiral. So meditation gives us time to step out of that and just look within ourselves and go, what do I need?
Last few minutes, you mentioned in your talking points shadow work. A lot of people may have a limited understanding of what this is. Some people may have a lot of fear associated with facing their shadow. What would you tell someone that is really interested in starting the healing journey but doesn't know how to start, doesn't really have a good understanding of what shadow work is or where to begin with it? What would you tell them?
I would say that shadow work, in shamanism, we call it soul retrieval. That's a nicer word, isn't it?
I like
soul
that.
Retrieval. But soul retrieval and shadow work is much of a muchness. So we repress so much of our feelings because of insecurities, because of different emotional complexes, because we tell ourselves nonsense, because our parents tell us nonsense, because our schools tell us nonsense. We take on the neuro-linguistic programming and we repress this part of ourselves because it's not good enough. We repress that part of ourselves. We try and become that thing that we're not really in order to impress parents, teachers, friends, whatever. And so we sculpt ourselves into becoming this thing that we're not. And this thing that we're not produces all the suffering, all the sadness, and all the harm that we do not want to perpetuate on others. We do it. If we're having a bad day and we snap at someone, that's our shadows. So what is shadow work? Shadow work is just going into our unconscious and processing those emotions that we've repressed, processing those thoughts about ourselves that are harmful, those thoughts about others that are harmful, processing all of that information so that we can sieve it out. It's like, think of it as water. You know, you want to sieve the water. You want to get out the bits out of the water. You want to filter the water of consciousness. And the water of consciousness has become dirty because we have allowed all of our nonsense to go to the bottom of the well. So now we're going to the bottom of the well and we clean out the well and we just take out the bits. We just look at them, acknowledge them, process them. Shadow work can be dangerous in as much as it can leave one very overwhelmed with emotion, which is why it's got to be done in a careful and intelligent way. You know, you don't, I want to get strong. I'm going to pick up as much weight as I can and do as much weightlifting as I can for 3 days. You just do it slowly. You build the muscle bit by bit, get stronger, get fitter, and by you'll be able to pick up those heavy weights. And shadow work's the same. Starting small. I always suggest like using nature, using the sun. Sun gazing is probably one of the most powerful tools that there is for stimulating the positive hormones, because of the way that the pineal gland is stimulated and the way that the pineal gland affects the pituitary gland when the sun is touching your eyes. Obviously only in the mornings, like when it's sunrise, because it can be harmful. You can't stare at the sun during the day. But this stimulates melatonin, serotonin, dopamine, and all these wonderful good stuff in our brains so that we can get into a natural high. And so I would always say to people, do a course of solar gazing for like 40 days before you start shadow work. And you'll find that you'll be so uplifted by the solar gazing, you'll be ready to go into the shadow places within your being and go, you know what? When I was a child, someone said this to me and it made me feel pretty crap about myself. And I've realized I've been carrying this around on my shoulders my whole life. And you know what? I don't need it. I don't need to feel that way about myself anymore. And suddenly it's like a weight's lifted off your shoulders and you feel empowered. And, so there are a lot of different techniques. I actually did a whole 2-hour seminar for how to do shadow work. It's in my channel if you go and look there under my it's under my lives. But shadow work, in short, is not the way it's been produced or the way it's been spoken about. Like people try and I think the controllers don't want us to do shadow work. They want us repressed. Because a repressed individual can be easily manipulated through advertising and Hollywood mind control and food poisoning. Gosh, there's another element of it, like what you eat. You want to clean your brain out as well, because the brain is like it's stuck in patterns. You want to clean the crap out of the brain so that the brain can make new neural pathways. And those new neural pathways will open up aspects of our repressed unconscious that will reveal things about us that bring us to a better state of wholeness and well-being.
100%. That is great information for the people. Is there anything that we didn't cover? Any final thoughts that you'd like to leave the audience with today?
Yeah, with regards to the shadow work and the spiritual tradition, there is the most powerful little exercise that you can do. And it is praised by the Rosicrucians, the Vedics. It's praised by, the anthroposophists, the theosophists, just about every mystery school. And it's so simple. It's called the daily recollection. And what it is it's a memory exercise. Just before you go to sleep, you just start off with 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you can increase it to be 20 minutes and 25 minutes. It's a kind of a meditation, but it's not a meditation. It's you sit down, or you can lie down, but I would recommend sitting down and being really comfortable and just in that point, see where you're sitting down and move backwards in your day from the point up until you sat down, and just move backwards through your day, observing especially how you felt and things that happened and how you internally were affected by your day. And just move back from that till the point that you woke up in the morning. You don't change anything. You don't have to recognize anything. You don't have to realize anything. You don't have to write anything. There's nothing to do. It's just a simple exercise of just observation. And you'll find interesting these patterns. But if you do it every day, then you notice patterns. You go, interesting, that pattern. That when I speak to John in the morning, I feel this way every day. So maybe like John's got like a bad influence on me, because every time I speak to John in the morning, I end up having this kind of a day. You'll notice things just as a pattern. And then just you can jot down a few things on a diary about your experiences of the recollection. If you do that every day, that will prime your memory in such a way that you'll be able to be trained to deal with the little repressed things. You'll stop adding to the repressions every day, because that unrepresses emotions, but just for today. And once you do that for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 20 days, 30 days, a month, 2 months, you start lightening the load of the shadow. It's a very subtle way, but by and by, other things will start lodging loose, because you'll notice, these experiences I've had in patterns, and actually they remind me of that experience and that experience and that experience. The key is just not to turn it into a mental journey. When you're doing your recollection, just run from the end to the beginning of the day. Don't go off mind wandering. Write down a few jots on a piece of paper, a diary, and keeping a diary is really powerful. Like, people don't understand the strength of the diary. The diary is the magical emblem of the heart. It's where you keep all of your deepest emotions, So yeah, that's what I thought would be the best thing to.
Right on. Bush Whisperer, thank you so much. This was fantastic. Definitely have to do this again. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will talk again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then. If you're looking to start your therapeutic microdosing journey, but don't know where to start, especially when looking for the highest quality ingredients, including nootropics, and what you'd expect from a true microdose capsule, check out our friends at Brainsupreme. They offer the absolute highest quality ingredients so you can start your microdosing journey knowing that you're getting top-notch ingredients. To find out more, visit their website using that link right in the description, and you can get 15% off your entire order. Hello friends, I am so excited to tell you about Independent Media Token. Independent Media Token is a brand new way to show your support for independent media without having to donate a dime. Independent Media Token is a cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain designed to generate funds to promote and foster the growth of independent content creators, allowing them to engage in their art without having to worry about being demonetized. Through a network of media partners, of which you yourself can become a part of, Independent Media Token's goal is to ensure the powers that be can never cut off all of our areas of funding and censor the only free voices left in the world. Join the movement today. You can pick up Independent Media Token using Phantom Wallet or the Solana wallet of your choice, where you can easily swap your Solana for IMT. Grab some IMT today and remember to always know your team. To learn more, visit independentmediatoken.com or use the link right in the description. Are you and your family prepared for an emergency? Maybe the fake alien invasion? Now is the time to prepare yourself and your family for any event. Check out Prep Starts Now. Their mission is to provide high-quality preparedness products that empower individuals and families to be ready for any situation. They're committed to delivering reliable, trusted gear to ensure your safety, security, and peace of mind in times of need. Their product selection is carefully curated to provide you with the essential gear you need to stay prepared. From emergency kits to tactical tools, every item is chosen for its reliability and practicality. Prep Starts Now understands the importance of family, and their goal is to equip you with everything you need to build a solid plan for your family's preparedness. In today's ever-changing world, being prepared is more important than ever, and Prep Starts Now is here to help you and your family stay ready with quality products and practical guidance. Use the link in the description and get 15% off your order.